ire àtòhun tó dára. Ọmọ òmùgé bọ́ sípò ẹ̀tọ́ rẹ̀. Ìwọ ni ìmọ́lẹ̀ gbogbo àdúgbò.
Wọ́n ní àwa ní ìmọ́lẹ̀ gbogbo adúláwọ̀. Lẹ́ẹ̀kan sí a kí gbogbo ilé, a kí ọkùnrin, a kí obìnrin, a kí ọmọdé, a dẹ̀ kí àgbàlagbà. Ẹ máa bá wa ká lọ lórí ètò tòní. A fẹ́ sọ̀rọ̀ nípa kí ni ẹ̀kọ́ tó wà ńbẹ̀ fún wa nínú ìjàjàngbara ti Yorùbá self-determination nínú n tó ṣẹlẹ̀ sáwọn tá à ń pè ní the Harkis. Mo lérò pé ètò talẹ́ yìí ó máa gba nǹkan gbì. Ó fẹ́ dàbí a máa kán lu agbami ètò báyìí. Ààrẹ Kúrúnmí, ẹ bá wa gbóhùn sókè lọ́dọ̀ yín lọ́hùn.
Ẹ ṣé púpọ̀. Mo kí yín ní orúkọ Olódùmarè. Mo kí yín ní orúkọ àwọn àgbààgbà tí ó tẹ̀lé Ifẹ̀ dó, tó tẹ̀lé Yorùbá dó. Mo kí yín ní àṣálẹ́ yìí o. Lágbára Olódùmarè, ilẹ̀ Yorùbá ò ní parun. Orílẹ̀-èdè Yorùbá kò dẹ̀ ní parun.
Àmín o,
Á
àmín o.
gbé ilẹ̀ ìlérí. Mo wá fẹ́ tọrọ nǹkan kan lọ́wọ́ yín. Ẹ jọ̀ọ́, ṣá lè record this session yìí? Because it's going, I think it has to be recorded so that other people can also listen to it. So,
Ẹ fún mi ní
okay.
a lè record ẹ o, ṣùgbọ́n ẹ máa fún mi ní ìṣẹ́jú kan sí méjì láti béèrè lọ́wọ́ àwọn ọ̀gá mi bóyá wọ́n ṣe tán láti bá wa record.
Ẹ máa ṣiṣẹ́.
Ẹ ṣé púpọ̀ ọmọ bàbá.
Ṣé ká dúró dè wọ́n?
Ẹ fún mi ní
Ẹ
ìṣẹ́jú
máa bá
àyà.
ṣẹlẹ̀.
Okay. So, I'll be speaking English today. Èdè Gẹ̀ẹ́sì ni màá sọ o. Because I'll be speaking a lot of terms. I'll be doing a lot of historical juxtaposition as regards, and I'll be doing a lot of I will summarize a lot as regards to what happened in Nigeria and the Algerian War of Independence, the battle for the soul of Algeria. If you study the history of Algeria, you are going to see that the situation of the Yoruba people
Ẹjọ́ kẹ́ tó bẹ̀rẹ̀, ṣé ẹnìkan lè bá mi píngì Mr. Gbọ́lá, Mr. Gbọ́lá Adéwùmí, because he has been everywhere talking about Yoruba, why we need Yoruba nation, all this kind of thing. He doesn't believe in it. So he should be in this session and listen. If you have him on your this thing, you can ping him in. Gbọ́lá Adéwùmí.
Ọ̀dà, ẹ ṣé púpọ̀. Ààrẹ, a ti ṣetán láti ká ohùn sílẹ̀. Wọ́n ní tíṣọ̀ bá pẹ́ ni ẹnìkan kì í pẹ́ṣẹ́ tó ṣe bí òwe ẹ̀yin bàbá wa. Ẹ bá wa gbóhùn sókè.
Okay, ẹ ṣé púpọ̀. The topic of tonight is the Harkis, the lesson for the Yoruba self-determination struggle. There's a big lesson for the Yoruba people to learn from the Algeria War of Independence. And I'm going to be giving brief summaries and brief history about Algeria. Algeria is a North African country that is located along the Mediterranean Sea and that has been occupied by different world powers from time immemorial. Basically, there are two ethnic nationalities within Algeria, the Arabs and the Berbers. The Berbers are the indigenous people of Algeria, while the Arabs came all the way from the Middle East. Later on, there was something called the Arabization of the Berber population. So we had something called Arabized Berber. And that is why many people in Algeria, they regard themselves as Arabs, even though they are Berbers. So because of this context, it's just like what is currently happening in the core north, which was the Fulanization of the Hausa people, another ethnic minorities in the core north, where over time they created an hybrid ethnic identity called Hausa Fulani. But over time, maybe in the next 50 years, they will become totally Fulanized and they will become Fulanis. But the difference between the Hausa Fulanis, the Hausa people is that, and the Berber people, as regards to how they interacted with their invaders, is that the Arabs were able to impose their language on the Berbers, while the Hausas were able, while the Hausas were able to preserve their language, but they lost everything to the invading Fulani conquerors of Hausa kingdoms. So I will be regarding the Algerians as Arabs so that we can have a proper conversation as regards to the topic we will be having today. At a point in time, between the 16th and 17th century, towards the mid early 19th century, Algeria was a vassal state, was part of the Ottoman Empire. And at the peak of the power of the Ottoman Empire, the European powers started looking at how they were going to balkanize the Ottoman Empire in order to take and annex many of its territories and member vassal states in order to promote white supremacy, the white burden, and the white hegemony. There was an ideological concept that started in the 18th and 19th century that was developed among intellectuals and the aristocratic circle and society in Europe, which was that the Caucasian race, which were the Europeans, had this privilege, they had this burden, which was called the white man's burden. What was the white man's burden? The white man's burden was that they had to actually take over. They had this divine manifest destiny, divine destiny, in order to lord over other inferior human civilizations, inferior human species, and inferior human societies, in order to entrench and promote imperialism. So, this was what they did. So, they were able to develop this concept in order to avoid asking questions on why they had to kill millions of people, appropriate lands of indigenous people, pillage the resources of the colonized people. in order to preserve European hegemony on the rest of the world. So, who are the Harkis? The Harkis were Algerian Arabs who fought on the side of the French in destroying in a bid to destroy the Algerian revolutionary movement for the independence for Algeria. The Harkis, once again, are indigenous Arabs, were indigenous Arabs in Algeria who joined the French in order to kill fellow Arabs who were asking for independence for Algeria. So these were the Harkis. And the Harkis, they were part of the elites, part of the powerful aristocratic societies. They were the successful bureaucrats. They were the who is who within the Algerian society. And they collaborated with the French in order to decimate their fellow Arabs because of tokenism, because they believe in the benevolence of their colonizers. This was who the Harkis were. Between 1930 and 1932, I won't bore us with a lot of history. The French people who had been looking for every opportunity to annex Algeria into its territory, they were able to achieve their aim between this period, between 1930 and 1932, by taking over, annexing Algeria from the Ottomans. And the Algerians, they tried as much as possible to fight back, but they weren't able because of the superior military strength and power of the French army. And after this was done, the Algerian Arabs thought that this was just a temporary or a form of indirect annexation of Algeria. But France, this was the period after, during the Napoleon expansionist agenda. They dreamt of annexing the whole of Algeria to be an extension of Paris, of France. And they designed several expansionist agenda and policies, so that Algeria will be forever part of France. Don't forget, the French people they just lost Haiti. The Haiti had just, before, towards the end of the 18th century, they just drove away the Haiti, they just drove away the French from Haiti. So, they lost Louisiana to USA. They were losing some of their colonies in the New World. So they felt Africa and Asia was their last stand. That if they lose their presence in Africa and Indochina, that will spell the end of the French Empire. And the French were not looking into a future where they will not be able to have an empire, because without having an empire, you can never be a superpower. That was the construct during that time. They've not been able, the idea of creating super states that will act as super empires via neo-colonialism, like we currently have, where you have the G5, the Permanent Council of the United Nations. They've not been able to do that. So during that time, it was on or off. It's either you conquer everybody or not. There was not. So it was to prevent further wars. that you have to have the concept of having the permanent council of the United Nations who have a particular veto. 180 countries can vote, and just one vote will nullify the remaining 180 votes. So they have to develop that concept so that the global order will be properly maintained. So now going back to what the French did. So immediately the French came in, they started implementing their policies. The first thing they did was to encourage migration of French citizens in their millions from France into Algeria. Now, as I'm speaking, as I'm talking, let us continue to compare and contrast what I'll be talking about and what is currently happening to the Yoruba people and other ethnic nationalities within Nigeria, so that you can properly understand the context. So when I'm saying this, so you can properly understand the context and what might probably happen to the Yoruba nation, Yoruba people in the next 2 decades, if nothing is done, and what is currently happening to us. Because in our eyes, we are currently being turned into third-class citizens, right in our eyes, together with the collaboration of the fifth columnists and the feudal elites who have sold out. Somebody mentioned the names of some people going from platform to platforms, rooms to rooms, to propagate the nonsense called One Nigeria, to propagate the status quo, which does not consider the necessity of the Yoruba people to survive as a people. So you are going to see people who did exactly, in fact, they did worse. They did worse. That is why they had to remove history from the curriculum and destroy historical lessons for the black people across Africa. Because if we knew our history, every black man will be a revolutionary. Dead or alive will be a revolutionary. So if in order to keep us down, history had to be removed. This is the difference between the Arabs, the Fulanis, and the Negroes of Africa. The Arabs do not need to go to school before they understand history. In their madrasas, in their folklore, in their school, in their homes, they've been taught history. That is why you see that these people, when it comes to reacting to injustice, they don't show emotions. They are only interested in the end game, because they understand that the end justifies the means. Millions of people can be wiped out in this generation in order to preserve the gains and hegemony and perpetuate the hegemony of their own race in the next century. They've seen several civilizations doing it, and they still do not see themselves as an exception in perfecting and perpetuating this hegemony. That is different between them and us, because most of our people have been turned into pawns. I don't know. We've been domesticated via the kind of education we were exposed to, and our mind has already been conquered. It's just remaining the physical manifestation of the conquest. So, back to the history of the Harkis, of the Algerians, starting from 1832. Thousands and millions of French people were asked to migrate into France, into Algeria. And Algeria was called an extension of France. That was how it started. And when these people came in their thousands, the first thing they did was that they stopped the teaching, the use of Arabic language in Algeria. The language was gone. The Arabic language was more of an indigenous language to the Algerian Arabs. So they took away the language and they started making sure that you have to speak French in order to be able to belong to the new order, which the French government was creating in Algeria. Secondly, they also continued to ensure that the Algerian Arabs, land was seized from Algerian Arabs, and the new French immigrants, they call them colons, colons, colonizers. So, it was not surprising when we have people talking about cattle colony, colons. And you have to understand that these people are just going through history and perpetuating what have been done in history in order to conquer people, because there are different ways in which people can be conquered. Different ways in which people can be conquered. So they did this, and they were able to seize 60 to 70% of indigenous lands in order to favor the new settlers. It was called settler colonialism. Now, to make matter worse, after Algeria was annexed, even though the settlers were just 5% out of 100 of the population of France, of Algeria, the settlers were the ones, French settlers in Algeria, were the ones who were representing the Algerian state in the French parliament. So they created a kind of an apartheid system of government, where they even said they were practicing a form of democracy. We shouldn't forget that the French Revolution just took place. But despite the fact that the French Revolution that took place in France, where the French people said all men are born equal and all those nonsense, by the time they were relating to other indigenous people across the world, they did not see themselves equal. They saw themselves superior to other people. So they believed that the French were equal to French and other Europeans, but the French were superior to other races across the world. So that has been the double standard and the hypocrisy of Western ideology as regards to relationship with the end of the world, with the rest of the world. So when they say self-determination is guaranteed under the United Nations, it's what they were not actually talking about black people. They were not actually talking about Indians. They were not talking about indigenous people. They were talking for themselves, because we do not have the right to choose, because we are considered subhumans. As I've said, the Arabic language was banned, and the settler colonialists, the colons, they took the land, displaced the natives, and the depopulation of Algeria started. In fact, between 1832 and 1850, the Algerian population reduced from 3 million to about 2 million. That was the extent of the damage that the initial French occupation of Algeria did. If we compare it, I said I'll be doing a lot of juxtapositions to what is happening in Nigeria, in the Middle Belt, in the Northeast, across the South, where thousands of families are wiped out in the night, where people are wiped out and where people are subjugated, where millions of people have been chased into IDP camps, and the lands are occupied by the invading Fulani herdsmen and militias, and the people in IDP camps, they do not even have the hope of going back to the ancestral space again, never. Their hope is gone. They do not have that hope. They do not have that opportunity. So they become refugees in the country they call their home. And the government that will continue to be due to the structure of Nigeria, has continued to perpetrate this expansionist ideology. So the same thing happened in France. Population in Algeria, the population of the Algerian Arabs went from 3 million to 2 million, thousands and thousands, up to a million were no more. So again, something started happening. There was something also that they did. There were the following things were the basis in which the French were able to perpetuate their hegemony. So firstly, they had this racist ideology that they were superior to the indigenous people. This is the same thing in Nigeria. It's the same thing what the Fulanis are doing. Same thing to what the British did to us, that they are superior race. They view other races with contempt, and they are the ruling class, and power and the resources of the indigenous people must be to themselves. And they use several different terms in order to continue to further their agenda. If they are not talking about the Islamism, which they hide under to deceive unsuspecting Muslims in the Middle Belt and the South, they also hide under one northern agenda in order to deceive other indigenous minorities in the north, or they hide under Pan-Africanism in order to manipulate and deceive the educated illiterates in the south, or they hide under majority versus minority. When a group of people that are even less than 8% of the population gradually start calling themselves majority overnight, and they said all Fulanis of Africa actually automatically belongs to Nigeria. This is the problem we have, and this is what we've seen happening over and over again to the rest of us. Yet, we still have people who still continue to dwell in their ignorance as regards to the reality of what Nigeria has become. Nothing but vassal states of the Fulani expansionist agenda, just like what the French did in Algeria. Also, the French were able to propagate religious extremism. They said Catholicism, which is a form of Christianity, was more superior to Islam. So they were able to propagate this, and they were using that to destroy any form of Sharia law in the Arab Algeria. They also embraced exploitative capitalism. So they ensured that there was more multinational corporations and companies. Just we have Dangote and all this BUA, all this exploitative capitalism that was controlling the rest of Algeria, in order to ensure that the resources of Algeria was not used for the development and of the indigenous people, but the minority settlers in Algeria, who were French and some of them of other European descent. So they practiced tokenism and a benevolent patronage. What do I mean? So in order to make sure that they were not able to invoke the wrath of the entire indigenous people against them, against the French government and the French settlers, they made sure that a particular class of Algerian Arabs was created. That class was created between 1850 to 1880. That was when they perfected that particular class. That class was called the Anglicized Arabs, the Anglicized Algerians, or the Anglicized Arabs. And these people, just like what the British did to us in during the British colonialism, where we have people like the Creoles and the Saros, who are the earliest, who are the people that were first educated in Yoruba land. But despite their education, they became a threat and they became a problem to the Yoruba people. And we had them, the Macaulays, the Cokas, the Fernandez, etc. I'm not trying to disparage anybody, but the history is there. Or now they colluded with the British in the colonization of Yoruba land. In fact, the bombardment of Lagos was by the British, was advocated by Bishop Ajayi Crowther, and several destruction of Yoruba kingdoms. The Creoles were also enablers. Even though they were Yorubas, they were enablers of the looting and destruction of Yoruba land. Also, I've talked about exploitative capitalism. Then also, we have to know that during this time, it was business as usual for France. And the majority of the Algerian Arabs, many of them became poor. Many of them could not. They became low. They could not get jobs. They fell lower and lower into the lower class of the new order, in which was a kind of a pyramidal structure where the French government was up. The new class, the French class, was in the middle, in the second strata, and we have the aristocrats, the anglicized Algerians, people that were given little education. They were advised to marry French people. They were advised to intermarry with the French, even though they were Algerians. They were Arabs. They were asked to do all sorts of things, and they were given tokens. I call it tokenism. So they became billionaires. They became rich. They became the elites. They were the people that were speaking in the media. They were part of the political system. They were given French citizenship in order to throw the other millions, 90% of the Algerian Arabs under the bus. So these were the gatekeepers of French imperialism in France, in Algeria. And I'm going to go further and show you what happened later. That this particular agenda, this particular I don't know the word to use, this particular method was what led to the killing, the death of close to 3 million Algerians in the 28th century, because these people became, they became dynasty. I don't want to mention names. You know the names I'm mentioning. When you talk about some names, Abiola was like that, Tinubu is like that, the Akinloyes was like that, they create dynasties that were totally removed from the indigenous people, and they were busy going in bed with the oppressors of their people. This was what happened in Algeria. And they were the ones that, anytime the Algerian people want to talk, anytime the Algerian Arabs want to say, this is not fair, this is not good, they're like, this is wrong. They are the people that will come out, the French people will push out to come and speak for the Algerian people. In fact, when you read the Algerian War of Independence and what the Algerians suffer, you are going to see that what the Algerian people suffered in the hands of the Ottomans first, in the hands of the French, was even worse than what this Palestinian nonsense thing that they are shouting up. And I'm not abusing the Palestinians, but you are going to see that this is what history has always been, and this is what the Yoruba nation is heading to. And I'm afraid that because not every ethnic nationality has been able to escape the clutches of secular colonialism. Anywhere there is secular colonialism, it spells doom for such civilization. Secular colonialism is different from colonialism via indirect rule. Because in secular colonialism, you bring in foreign people in order to totally take over the society, that particular society, and build a new civilization. So this is what secular colonialism does. And this is what the Fulanis are currently doing in Nigeria. This is what the Fulanis are currently perpetrating in Nigeria. And this was what the Boers, the English, did in South Africa. This was what the Germans did in Namibia. This is what is going to happen to us if we do not do what we have to do to reverse this ugly trend. When we talk about history, it is not for us to glorify and zip tea and be saying, wow, this guy is making sense. No, this guy is knowledgeable. No, it's for us to actually be sober, be calm as we learn from these historical anomalies. So, the First World War and the Second World War were the two major events that actually destroyed, that actually weakened generally the European powers, especially the French. I'm not going to go into how the First World War started and how the French started taking part in the First World War. But during the First World War, the French also did something fantastic. Even though the Arab Algerians were categorized as subhumans in the constitution written by the French government in Algeria, because it was being ruled as a French colony. It's even different from a colony. It was an extension. It was part of France, because the French people, as at the end of the 20th century, the population of the immigrants has swollen, and they were more than 1 million French people living in fantastic places in Algiers and in Sahif and in other fantastic Algerian cities. And they said Algeria will forever be part of France. So it was not the issue of colonialism. It was like, this is an extension. Because this issue of Lebensraum that Adolf Hitler was also promoting was not only a French, was not only a German thing. The British were doing it. They said the sun will never set on the British Empire. The Americans were doing it. They call it the Manifest Destiny. They took over Hawaii. They took over New Mexico. They took over Texas from the Spanish. They took over this particular several islands across in the Pacific in order to continue Hawaii. So they bought Alaska from the Russians, because it was an agenda that they need to expand as much as possible in order to protect their civilization. They understood that there are different stages of civilization and empire building. And for you to build an empire, you need land. You need it as much as possible. Because the more the land, the more the ability of the people to expand. So they had to expand as much as possible. So this was what they did. The French were also doing that. They were also in Vietnam. They were doing all sorts of things, going around, looking at how they say, okay, what about they look at France. Can their population, the way they were growing, that is why they are the ones always talking about population control, because they do not have the land to sustain their people. So, and unfortunately for the European powers, many of their people that left Britain, many of their people that left France, many of their people that left Spain, by the time they got to the lands they seized from the indigenous people, these people went there, took up a different nationalist identity, and started fighting against their mother European countries. It happened in the War of Independence of Mexico from Spain. The Argentines did the same thing. The Paraguayans did the same thing. They were doing all these things. They said, no, we don't want to be involved. America did the same thing against England. They said, no, we are Americans. We don't want to have anything to do with the English again. And they fought. That led to almost between 750,000 to 1 million people died in the American. They call it the American Revolution. When they fight their battles, they give it a fantastic names. They don't call it terrorism. They don't call it insurrection. They call it revolution. And they romanticize this history and make people like us that are now looking for a way in how can we make sure Yoruba land is great. They call us separatists, secessionists, and you still see the people that are also suffering from this diabolical agenda, also going around re-echoing these nonsense rhetorics. That is why there is a particular English adage that says, if you want to kill a dog, you have to give it a bad name. Now, that is the basic, that was actually the summary. What happened between 1832 and 1914? 1832 and 1914. I'm going to stop here, and so that one of the moderators will also come, and so that if people have questions, I can also answer, and if people have additions, so that we can also take it from there. So, Mr. Abami, I will be waiting so that I can start. It's going to be in 3 stages. This is the first stage. So the second stage, the second part, is the most interesting part. Very, very interesting. And you are going to see a lot of something that actually looks as what it looks exactly as what we are passing through. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so
Sorry,
much,
I have an observation, please. I want
Are.
to show you people a tweet. I posted one tweet on our group here. I saw this tweet. This girl. I beg if people have people in.
Olamiriwaju,
Oh,
send me message in the back channel. Let's move on with the program, please, my brother. Sorry.
okay.
All right. At least we have that now. Thank you so much, Are. That has been an explosive one, and we want to throw we want to throw it out there. If you have questions or comments or contributions, please feel free to unmute. We're going to open hand raising so that people can as well just raise their hands and ask questions and make contributions as well. Yeah, I just did that. Please, if you have questions or comments or contributions, please flash your mic. And Ola Abdul, I can see you, and Olamiriwaju, I can see you. My brother Abdul, please go ahead.
Yes. First and foremost, I want to ask question. Then I want to comment the speaker, which is the Mr. Are, for a wonderful explanation over there concerning the Harkis from Algeria pertaining to French colonialism. However, first question I want to ask is, what can you say about the Brexit that just happened recently, which is like some months back? British pulling out from European organization, because you can see that it doesn't involve any bloodshed. It goes seamlessly, though it wasn't easy, almost a year, going forward and back, which crippled the economy. What is the agenda behind it? Yes, I'm a follower of history. I'm a follower of international history as well. But I still see it as part of like actualization for self-determination of the British people, for probably being controlled from the Europeans. That's number one. Number two, if we could see what is happening right now in Nigeria concerning the Fulani and the Hausas trying to invade the Yorubas. If you look at what our governors and the rest are doing concerning the open grazing ban, which they were saying that they are not going to allow, the Northerns are saying they are not going to allow that to proceed, to happen. This probably was because as a result of what you are trying to pass across, that if they allow part of that to happen, which means they will not have most access to crossing over to the south, to the western part of the country. And this is part of an idea or a prepared or a way of coming to the country. I mean, coming to the western part of the country, to settle down and extend their tentacles. So if they didn't allow them to come in, what do you think can happen? That's number 2 question. And number 3 question is, we know that 2023 is coming up, right? And we have people saying that the like of Tinubu, for example, they want to be the
Please,
president.
please, let please, I beg you in the name of God, let the questions be direct and straightforward, so that Are can answer them uh, the way they are. If we make it too complicated, it become a little tricky. Please.
Okay. Number 3 question is, what can we do? 2023 is approached, and we are still in this mess. What can we do? That's the number 3 question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, my brother. My brother, let me reward you. Please go ahead.
Hmm. My own question is just, there are many, but I will limit it. I've read through, I heard what Ale was talking about how indigenous spaces have been taken. And I used to ask, I told one of my friends this morning today. He was telling me, what is all this your Yoruba nation all about? What is your Yoruba nation all about? I don't know. This the Yoruba person, is one of those miseducated, educated illiterate, So I think the mantra maybe Are should also be adding to is this thing that is our language is important. This girl who knows Rinu Odwala, she posted something this evening that she has a presentation to make, and she was told to present in Yoruba, and she wrote and a day wahala start, and people were literally laughing. Even this lady, this footballer, Aziza Toshuala, and I quoted that message and I said, this is actually not funny. I mean, it is a generational disaster that our own language is made to be an alien to us, all because of the One Nigerian project. This is how languages go into extinction. I think the main focus of people is that they should, aside from the political part of it, they should always cite the language, because if we are not careful, our language will go to extinction in 50 years' time, because there is no country in this world, I will keep saying it, that they don't use their indigenous language to teach their children in school as their means of educating their kids. There's no country that's prosper in this world that they don't use their indigenous language, except from the new world. And the new world, which are the new world? The new world are USA, America, USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, right? America is that Spanish and Portuguese.
Olamide
So
Rewaju, Olamide Rewaju,
yeah,
we're having a hard time hearing you. I just moved you to the audience. Please raise your hand. I'm going to bring you up. Sorry about that, but the network is really bad. Let's try again.
can you hear me now? Can you
Yes,
hear me
yes,
now?
yes. Yeah, it's better. Please go ahead.
When last did you hear me?
You were talking
When
about Usuala language will go to into extinction.
yeah
Please wrap
yeah.
up, please.
So I mean I was people like Ushuala, she was laughing and saying it was funny. So I wrote it, I quoted them and said that this is actually not a funny issue, that how can our own indigenous language be alien to us all because of a Nigerian project, that this is how language is going to extinction and we must start taking it serious. And I did had a conversation with my friend today, was asking me that how what is all this Yoruba nation all about. Then I cited to him that he should point out to me that any country that don't speak their language that has prospered technologically or economically. He was now saying US. I said, are you okay? So I told him that those countries are New World countries because they were conquered and those people were assimilated. So the new world countries that prosper today, US, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, right? If you check South America, those ones I'm not sure they have their own indigenous language anymore. What they speak is Spanish and Portuguese. And you know how South America is today. So, I think maybe if we would also want to push our agenda very well, we should use this our language as a tool because we should use this our language as a tool because people actually are just educated illiterate. They don't know. I was watching a news today. Somebody was a professor. He was saying we should be happy that at least we were born as a Nigerian. Just for that, we should be happy. I mean, emotional blackmail. We should just be happy to be suffering. You see, a lot of people don't know the consequences of what they are doing. And maybe if we have people that know people in position of power, they should start educating those politicians that, I mean, particularly Yoruba politicians that, I beg, we need to start doing something about this. Because I did have the conversation with my Bangladesh friend today. He said their kids are being taught in their own language from age of 1 to 10 or 1 to 10 or so. Then they teach them a bit of English. Then when they get to higher junior schools, they now start using English for them, so they can write in Hindu or whatever. So look at us now, we are speaking English. Some of us cannot even. I mean, it's really embarrassing that I can't even write in Yoruba. I can't. She says she doesn't know the meaning of inequality and injustice in Yoruba. So you see all these kind of things. It was a London school that told her to come and make that presentation. So I mean, that's just a ridicule on her own personality that she can't even speak her own language. So all these kind of things must be put into context. If we don't want to talk about the political part, we should take that as a tool to put our agenda out there.
Thank you so much, Olamirewaje. Do we have anyone else with questions or contributions or comments? Please kindly flash your mic. I saw that other people came up to the stage. Bola, please go ahead.
Mr. Bola, please.
Bola, please go ahead. Hello. Yeah.
Hello. Hi. Sorry. Good evening, everyone. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening. Well, it's a contribution and an appeal. I always tell people that I'm a man of contradictions, in the sense that seemingly contradictions, in the sense that, take for instance, let me start with the Yoruba nation. I am all for a Yoruba nation, but I don't mind a Nigeria that works. But if Nigeria does not work, I'm perfectly happy with the Nigerian nation. However, the one thing I've noticed is this, which is not helping the cause. Let's try and tone down the antagonism. In as much as we're pained, and I understand that the killing and everything that is going on right now has kind of lit a fire underneath what is happening. Ideally, for me, if it was just a process of, oh, we want our nation and there's nothing else necessarily, and there's nothing urgent pushing us, that would have been good. So I understand where the emotions are coming in. I perfectly understand that. But please, let's try and listen to divergent views. Let's try and listen to other people's views. Even when they don't agree with us at all, let's try and win them over by the strength of our conviction and arguments. Because, in all honesty, the reason why I'm a bit reluctant that we should go into a Nigerian nation now is there are a lot of things I see around us. A lot of baggages we'll be carrying from a Nigeria that would just kill the Yoruba nation. And that's why I've been trying to reach people that would probably be able to reach out to, because I tried registering with the Ilana Omodua website, but the registration process is too cumbersome. I have to bring one referee from my local government, blah, blah, blah. As it is right now, I'm not in Nigeria, so looking for a referee is almost out of the case. There are things we need to start working on. There are values we need to start, not necessarily, when I say the work we need to do right now, it's not about drawing out the full details of the Constitution, but there are values which are honestly Yoruba values anyway. Take, for instance, the issue of listening to people. The Yoruba value is about listening to everyone, even young and old. So please, I just want to encourage us that let's try and listen to all views and don't let us put ourselves out there as if we are more superior to anybody else. Because people will now start pointing a finger that you're being what you're fighting against. Let our agitation, let our revolution be that of a desire to make a change, not necessarily for ourselves, but for humanity and mankind, to be an example to other people around, other nations around us. So that's my submission. I
Thank
end
you
my
so
mic.
much.
Thank you.
Okay, can I continue, please, so that we can
Please,
quickly wrap up? This
please,
is yeah.
Are, please give me a second. Please note those questions that you're going to answer before you continue. Are, please. To my brother Agbola, thank you so much for your inputs. Thank you for your contribution. We love them. We're going to take them into consideration. But I would let you know this. When Yorubas, some Yorubas, when they are saying this is color blue, not because we are color colorblind, but because we know it's color blue. And we also have some Yorubas that are saying, oh, it's a shade of blue, or it's a sky blue, or it's some other forms of blue. But we are saying this is blue. When we have Yorubas that are saying maybe this is green, there is no way to sugarcoat that. We are not going to add curry. We are not going to add any spices for you. Whoever you are, Yoruba man, Yoruba woman, we are not going to curry this. I'm sorry. It may hurt. I'm sorry. You may not like it. But there are no better ways to tell you that blue is blue. And I'm not going to be nice about that. If we have to argue about blue being a shade of blue or being green to something that we all can see. Today, I was on a call on this clubhouse closed room session with one of the people that like to argue and debate us. And I said, it doesn't matter. Don't agree. Don't agree. But just shut your mouth. You necessarily don't have to say anything if you don't have anything to say. You will never have Fulanis coming up to come speak against their Fulani brothers that are spewing rubbish. You know why? Because they understand. They can see the bigger picture. They know that if they take your ancestral land, it's going to be for their children's children. They know. So they are not going to come out and argue. It's only our Yoruba people that will come up and argue with you and debate with you.
And
And
humiliate you
and
publicly.
humiliate you publicly, and they come back to say, let us listen to opinions and views that are no. That is how we got to where we are now. You see, those are our politicians, the Yoruba elites in politics, Yoruba elites in business. That is how they got all of us into this trouble that we are in today. Because they think maybe, just maybe, if we concede a little bit more, just maybe, peradventure, we could work with these Fulanese and still get what we want. You are not going to get anything. With these guys, you are not going to win if you want to work with your enemies. You are not going to win working with your enemies. The only thing that bullies respect is bigger bullies. So if we are going to have to fight Fulani and fight our brothers who are seen blue and call it green, I'm sorry. And I'm not sorry. We are going to come for you. We are going to start from the clubhouse. We are going to start from the streets. We are going to start with the common Yoruba man. We are going to start with common Yoruba women. And we are going to go up to the elites of Yorubas. It's either you are Yoruba or you are not Yoruba. No middle grounds. No middle grounds. No middle grounds. If you need to be taught that we are in trouble, if I need to preach to you that we are in trouble, just on this clubhouse, just right in the last 30 minutes, somebody called me out into a closed door session to say, the name calling, and I educated him. Some of us have been in this struggle for 7 years, for 10 years, hoping that our Yoruba brothers and sisters can recognize that we are facing an existential threat. So if you are not going to understand that and realize that, and we are still coming here to come tell you the problems that we're facing, but you still want us to curry it, you still want us to make it sound nice, I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. We are going to come for you. And it is just getting started. You are either with us, you are against, or you are against us. No middle grounds. No middle grounds. No sounding nice. If you don't ask me what you have to do. Think what you can do. Don't ask me, so what do we do now? No, you think, what can you do? How can you contribute your quota? Then we can meet somewhere. We can say, okay, now you've done this and I've done that. How can we move forward? Are, please, I yield to you. Thank you.
All right, let me say something. I think Mr. Bola, is he still there? He was flashing just
Yes,
now.
I am. I was going to make a comment, but that's fine. You
Uh
can carry on.
you can make your comments. I'm not sure if it's going to be related to what I wanted to say or not. Um, you can make your comment and I'll just make a little summation and let Are goes. If that's
Okay.
okay with you. Yeah.
Well, take for instance, I understand what you're saying. Understand what's. I didn't get the name of the person that replied me now. I understand all that. I'll use an example of how I'm going about it. The 2023 election. Everybody within my sphere of influence, I'm telling them not to register for the PVC. I'm telling them to tell anybody they know that is running not to run. I'm telling them they need to take a stand. In some room, about a week back, I was explaining to them that, look, when I was in touch with Chore, what I told him about the last election was, pick a southerner, break this nonsense of north and south. So if, when it comes to being radical, I am as radical can be. But what I'm saying is, let our radicalism be based on the same way we want other people to treat us. Because right now, some of the complaint is that the Fulanis are treating Yorubas as slaves. But we can't now turn back and be treating other people as slaves. That defeats our agitation, even
Sorry,
from the start.
sorry, Mr. Bola. Honestly, I would have appreciated it if I finished my talk before we can now
Okay.
start
All right.
engaging.
Thank you.
But
I'll stop.
wait. You said Yorubas are treating themselves, agitators are treating each other as slaves. Please, can you expatiate?
I've
Give
not said
example.
agitators are treating each
Give
other as
names.
slaves. I
Give
said
names.
we shouldn't. And why I've said that is this. I've heard people say that Fulanis are of lesser IQ. That is a generalization.
Okay, Mr. Bola,
Apart
you
from
can.
that, sorry, apart from the Fulani, apart from the Fulani issue, I've heard people,
Address this
sorry, let me
later.
just land on this. Let me
No,
land on this, please.
I'm
Let me
coming.
quickly land on
I'm
this.
coming. I'm coming. Please. The topic of today
Please,
is the
let's allow him
Akis.
to finish.
No, I'm coming. Please. The Akis, the lesson for Yoruba self-determination. Normally, I wanted to do the first part, second part, the third part, and we go full blown into the audience and we have a robust exchange. You understand what I mean? Now, it is unfair. I don't think have you ever recorded me saying the Fulanis are of lesser IQ? Have I ever said that? I don't think Mr. Bami have said that. If somebody is killing me, wiping out people in their thousands, and their representatives comes on television to say, if you don't give up your ancestral lands, we will not stop killing you. Is that person even IQ okay upstairs? Why are you victimizing the victim?
But
For
sorry,
every reaction, I'm coming. For every action, there's equal and opposite reaction. Look, I'm sorry, sir. To say this. If you are not mad enough, if you are not madder than the maddest, you are not ready for freedom. That's one. Two, I'm sorry to say this, if you want to be the devil's advocate for people that have shown no empathy, privately, publicly, in every platforms, for the killings being perpetrated by their kinsmen across Central and West Africa, then something is wrong. This opinion is not needed here. Have you been to IDP camps in Benue, in Taraba, in Plateau? But you are preaching kumbaya to people that have been slaughtered to calm down. Calm down as what? Revolution is not a tea party. It's not a tea party. It's a bloody party. That is why we are educating ourselves here. That we must not be emotional. We must be intellectual. You will never see me use that word. I engage them. What I've said here openly is that Fulani see themselves as superior. They are born to rule. They opened a club room a few weeks ago, where they said Northerners are born administrators. Am I lying, my people?
No,
And,
that's
and they
exactly what they
even
did.
defended it, that they are born to rule. People went to that room, they were telling you to their face.
Consciously or unconsciously, they
I'm
do.
coming. They even said that Yoruba, Southern women, the Arab women have more dignity, more value, and more superior to our women. They said a few days ago, when you go to some rooms, you are going to hear something that will make you mad, but we still get calm and we give it to them raw because we are not our fathers. If you want to go 20 kilometers, we are going to go 200 kilometers with you because we are facing an existential threat. Can I ask you, Mr. Agbola, the thousands of people that have been massacred in Benue for the past 5 years, can you bring them back to life? No.
Are, no, that
So please, I want to beg you. I'm going to engage you properly. And this second part, we actually expose some things. I want everybody to be in the room. And you are going to understand and you open your mouth that what is happening in Yoruba land, what is happening in Ambazonia, what is happening in Biafra struggle, what is happening in Niger Delta struggle, what is happening in the Polisario struggle in Western Sahara is happening as happened before in the Algerian struggle. You'll be shocked that somebody can be Arab and still be selling out the fellow Arabs. So please, Mr. Agbola, I want you to stay in the room. I understand where you're coming from. That some of our people should moderate their outbursts. I understand. I understand.
can I
But
say
I've seen,
this? An example is what has Biafrans got to do with our agitation that people will be abusing Biafrans at this stage?
we have
We should
never
be
Who is
ever
building
abusing
had sorry,
Biafrans?
coalition
Mr.
with the
Bola.
Biafrans.
Mr. Bola, that is exactly. I now know where you are coming from. You are new to this room. The day Nnamdi Kanu was arrested, everybody on this platform, we put on it was the picture of Nnamdi Kanu that was on our profile
We,
for more than 48 hours. Everywhere most people on these platforms go to, we defend Igbos. We defend Igbos. If I'm lying, people can say I'm lying here. Virtually everybody here defended the Igbos. And the Igbos came to this room and they were so happy. If you are any Igbo in the room, you can bear witness. Come upstairs, come up and say this.
I think you're right because after that day I'm Igbo myself and I joined you guys after that. So
Thank you
you are
very
right.
much.
Yeah.
Mr. Agbola, maybe you are new to this room or you are talking to a different set of nationalists, Yoruba nationalists. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. We are smart to know that. And Igbos are not our problem. I think we should move on. Mr. Agbola, stay in the room and many more expositions will be done. Mr. Bami, please moderate and let me come in back, please.
Thank you so much. Oberon, please go ahead. Oberon.
Okay, I wanted to say, Are, let's just keep going on. Please note the three questions that Mr. Abdul asked. Unfortunately, we don't have time to go over that question again. There's so much to learn tonight. If you're new to the room, please follow the club. This is Yoruba Nation's room. Ideally, we would have loved to speak in Yoruba, as some people has been clamoring for. But for the sake of some people who doesn't understand Yoruba, and this lecture actually does not only apply to us, it applies to everybody in the struggle, those of the Middle Belt and those of the South South and those of the Biafra. So we will continue to use English for some certain programs such as this one. So please, Are, please go on, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry, Mr. Bami, please, can I just get 10 seconds?
Okay, go
Only
ahead.
10,
10
only,
seconds.
when it's more than 10 seconds, please just cut me. Mr. Bola, I just want to say that you are normal, and there's nothing wrong about being normal. But the people we are dealing with, they are abnormal. You have to be abnormal with them. They always take advantage of a situation when they see that you are thinking normal, you are being polite, you are being reasonable. These people are not reasonable. You can't be reasonable with them. Once they sense that you are playing their game, trust me, they will step back. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Are, please go ahead.
Thank
Please.
you very much. Now, thank you, everyone. The topic today is the lessons that we can learn from the Harkis during the Algerian War of Independence and how we can relate it with the Yoruba struggle. The second part of today's discourse is relating the roles that the diasporan Arab Algerians played in the liberation of Algeria. Without the diaspora Algerians,
Sorry, Are, please hold on. Uncle Bami, please check your message, please. Uncle Bami, please check your message. Are, thank you. Continue.
okay,
All right,
the,
thank you.
the diaspora Algerians were responsible. played a vital role in the emancipation of their people. Maybe today, half of Algeria will be part of France. Or you are going to have like extension, that this is still part of France. That is probably what we are going to have today. Or we have a quasi kind of independence where the French, we are going to have a kind of a apartheid or something like South Africa in Algeria. So let's move on. During the First World War, 100,000 Algerians, Arabs, were conscripted forcefully. And some even came anyway, some were brainwashed into joining the French army. These people went into France, went into Europe, they went into Asia to fight on behalf of France in order to defeat the Austro-Hungarian and German Ottoman alliance. So when these people they finished fighting, they saw how they were treated. They were paid lesser salary, lesser wages. They didn't get the best medical treatment like their French counterparts. In fact, majority of the victory that the French people had when they were fighting in the African section of the First World War and the European part of and the Asian part of the First World War, it was the French, Arab Algerians that were instrumental for that victory. But when it was time to take the glory, it was the French who took the glory. They were relegated to the background because it was written that these people are subhumans compared to the French. So after that war, many veterans of that war stayed back in France and they didn't come back to Algeria. They did all the menial jobs, laborers, clerks, security guards, which was needed for the rebuilding of France after the First World War. It was there many of them started getting access. They got access. They were given basic, at least premises education, high school education. They started reading newspapers, magazines. They read about the French Revolution, how all men are born equal, how what egalitarianism should be. And it was during that time the ideology of Karl Marx and Engels was permeating Europe. There was the Bolshevik revolution in Russia, and they started asking a question: what is happening? Why are we treated like animals in our ancestral space? They still come to France and they are treated like nobody. What is happening? Are we lesser human beings? They started reading the history of the Islamic empires of Andalus, the Abbasid Caliphate, and the contributions of these people to modern civilization and science. They started becoming radicalized. And the leader of that diaspora movement, his name was Mensali Haj Abdul Kassar. I'm going to call him Mensali Haj. His father was a former revolutionary fighter who also fought and died in battle. His name of his father was Sheikh Kassar, who were the part of the people who fought the Second Revolutionary War in order to expel France from Algeria, even though they lost. So if you understand what has been happening under the French, it's something like the Yorubas. There have been different, we had Operation Wet here. It was against impunity against our leader. We had June 12 crisis, which was a fight against northern hegemony, against another Yoruba son. The Igbos fought the civil war in order to fight against the injustice of the pogrom that happened in the north, where over 50,000 Igbos were killed, maybe within 3 months. Within 3 months. It's one of the silent massacres of the whole world. So that's why it pains me when I see Igbos who's supposed to be sober, killing 400 cows because they want to, a young boy wants to bury his mother. People that are at the verge of extinction. Anyway, I'm going to keep it cool with the Yoruba people. I'm going to stay in line with the Yoruba struggle. So, Mesali Kasau was an Algerian. So when he came back from the First World War, as a veteran of the First World War, he did all sorts of menial jobs, washing toilets, doing all sorts of things, and he stayed in the shanties in France, and he started a little business just to keep body and soul together. But he had a form of education, and he read a lot, and he was the one who started a party called the North African Star. And this particular party, he first gathered all the Algerian Arabs that were former veterans, people working, doing menial jobs, people working as housemaids, prostitutes. It was a populist movement. And he had this socialist, communist ideology. And the reason why he embraced socialism was that he believed that everybody is equal. The French are not superior to me, and he is not inferior to the French. And being the grandson of a warrior, of a revolutionary, he understood this was a cause to continue what his grandfather started. So he started this, and they started coming together, and this started making French government officials and the Algerian Arabs elite and aristocrats who were in support of French colonization of France, of Algeria. Even though 70% of the Algerian land has been appropriated to the French settlers, their economy taken away, 90% of the French people were living in abject poverty. We had a particular Arab Algerians who saw no problem in the exploitation and dehumanization of their people. In fact, they supported the colonization. And they were just saying, just give us French citizenship. Take the whole of Algeria. Make us have access to the economy. Give us concessions, and they are ready. That's why I've always said it. I've repeated it over and over again and again, that elitism is the sophisticated form of feudalism. So when you see somebody that is a celebrity, see somebody that is a politician, a political heavyweight, see somebody that have made their money on that shooting, they are just billionaires, speaking against the Yoruba nation. That is expected because they are the product of the system. The Fulani hegemony, this was what they did across the South and the Middle Belt. They created oligarchs that will be at the mercy of the Nigerian state, and they will be always loyal to the Nigerian state against their people. That is why the best way to be great, if you want to be climb up very fast in the social ladder within the contraption called Nigeria, the first thing is you must throw your people under the bus. That is the first thing you need to do. When you throw them under the bus, the sky is your stepping stone. You're going to amass wealth. That is why people will gladly say yes. They are not interested in the Yoruba agenda, and they will be happy to say it. And many of us will get mad because we don't understand history. People like that have always existed in history. And they either have their way and we get destroyed, or we have our way so that millions of people will get out of penury. So, there were two political opinions amongst the Algerian Arabs, both home and abroad. The first opinion was the pro-integration groups. These people were bankrolled, and supported by the French government. They were in the media, they were doing all sorts of things. That it is better, there is more future in the French Algeria, Francophone France Algeria, where the Algerian Arabs will be given automatic French citizenship and they will become part of France. And they should just overlook the whole thing. They started preaching pan-humanism. They started doing all sorts of things. In fact, the French government started making plans they started giving the Arab Algerians citizenship. Don't forget, since 1832, the the French people have already, they've invaded Algeria and they settled nothing close to 2 million French people into Algeria. During this time, the Arab Algerians were not given any form of citizenship. They were just slaves and serfs, stateless people, people at the mercy of the settlers. So when there were different fights for Algerian independence towards the end of the 20th century, and they saw the revolution, ideological shift, paradigm shift in the in the beginning of the 20th century, they started giving them practicing tokenism. And let us make some of these people, give them Algerian passport. Let us call them French citizens, so that they can split the camp of the other radical wing. So the pro-integration groups, just like we have the pro-one Nigeria, they were saying, there's nothing wrong. There's unity in diversity. That was what they were saying. You can go and read it online. You'll be shocked. They said there was unity in diversity.
I hate that statement. I hate it.
Sorry, I'm finishing. They said there was unity in diversity, that they shouldn't hate, that there were French people, the French settlers some of them have intermarried with the Arab Algerians. So what will happen to these people? That they should just forget the past and let them move on. Let them forget something, and there will be reforms. So it was called tokenism. So that was what they did. Now the second ideological group is the group that some of us belong, and many people on this platform, was the pro-independence group. They call them pro-independence stroke pro-autonomy, because some of them were even fighting for autonomy, that they should control their resource. So that's why you see people shouting regional autonomy, some people shouting Oduduwa Republic. We are fighting for the same thing. That Paul has said that several times here. And they said, so they were called, most the people here consist of the communists, Algerian nationalists, and in the pro-integration groups, people who supported the continuous colonization of France, and they were Algerian Arabs in their millions. In their millions, I repeat, in their millions. These people, they were the elites, the aristocrats, successful businessmen, professors, intellectuals of Algerian Arab descent, living in Algeria and living in France. They supported everything what France was doing. The killing of Algerian Arabs by French settlers, they are not concerned. The apartheid system, because in Algeria then, the places where these European settlers, French settlers were living was far, far better. It was like just in Soweto, in Johannesburg, Cape Town. It was a kind of an apartheid system of governance that was practiced in France, in Algeria. So, but in the pro-independence group, who are the members? They were the petty traders, the laborers, the security guards, small businessmen, petty bureaucrats, people that were acting as interpreters, typists, clerks, the people at the lower base of the society. They were the ones that were in the pro-independence group. Àwọn ìyá aláta, ìyá ẹlẹ́ran, These were the people in the pro-independence group for the emancipation of Algeria. So this was the ideological shift, and this was the divide. You can see it's not different from what we have now, currently in Yoruba land. Am I lying? Currently in Biafra, currently in Niger Delta, currently in Ambazonia, and in many self-determination struggles across the world. So when people say, what about our elites, our politicians, our celebrities, they will never join you. If you see them joining you today, they want to hijack the struggle. They want to use it to negotiate. They will never join you. So the Masali Arch also created he created another party called the Arab Algerian Workers' Party. People that were working, people working in Algeria, in France. This was where they were sending their 1 francs, 3 francs, 4 francs. They were sending it to support the independence struggle at home. This is, if you don't, just as I'm talking, Google. These are information that you're going to get there. Out there, Google. You'll be shocked. They were doing this, and they were the source of finance. They were the people who financed the people working, doing cleaners. They were the ones who financed the Algerian War of Independence. They were the people. In fact, it got to a time that French government started raiding, killing, maiming Algerian workers in France for supporting their people back home. They started deporting people, raiding them. And when it was in Brussels, Belgium, that Messali Arch declared the independence of Algeria in 1937 in Brussels, because they didn't allow him he was not allowed to have his meeting in France. So he had to go to the French part of Belgium in order to make that declaration. This is this particular history is a wake-up call and a way to shut those saboteurs, those people that used to tell all the diasporans to shut up. They are sending them a good job. They know why they are telling the diasporans to shut up. They know the war, the Nigerian independence was because of the diasporans who won the struggle. Awolowo was from the diaspora. Nkrumah, even the Ghana independence was from the diaspora. Nkrumah was from the diaspora. Sekou Touré had spent some time in the diaspora. Azikwe was from the diaspora. So they understand the power of the diaspora. That is why they need to shut down the diaspora. And you see these feudal, the sons of these feudal oligarchs and their southern collaborators telling diasporans to shut up, because they know that is where the power lies. That is where the power lies, especially in the populist movement. So if without the diaspora power, we would have been conquered many years ago. So we must not underestimate what we can do if we unite, if we organize and mobilize. So I'm saying this because I don't want to say this history as a story. Because once it's a story, it no longer brings out the revolutionary lessons that we need to learn. Because this is a revolutionary discourse. And we must be able to actually learn properly and be able to put things in concept as regards to what we are discussing tonight. Also, immediately the French government saw what Messali Hadj was doing. Messali Hadj, in fact, he married a French woman. And the French woman even was part of the people that were even supporting him in raising funds. But even though the French woman was a communist who believed in egalitarianism of races, of societal classes. So then with that, I'm just trying to put things in context. So it doesn't matter where you are, who you are married to, or what. you can still be very, very instrumental in the struggle. Once you believe in your Yoruba identity, you can. So everybody is needed. Everybody is needed. All hands should be on deck. So the French government proscribed the North African Star Party. They said it was a terrorist organization in 1937. Does this ring a bell? So they proscribed the party, and the party went underground. And Mesali Arch was arrested because he went back to Algeria. He was giving speech across different Algerian towns and cities, and he was arrested. And they said he was arrested for anti-political activities, the illegal political activities. That was uh, the charge. The charge,
The offense.
and they are the charge. Yeah, the offense. And do you know the funniest thing again? It was fellow Algerian Arabs, the people in the pro-integration group, that said, look, you have to lock this man up. Oh. He's changing the mind of people. Kill him and lock him up. So they locked him up. He was given 6 months. So immediately he came out after 6 months, he became more radicalized. And he took the revolutionary struggle to the next level. So he was actually jailed in 1933. So I think he made a declaration in 1927. Yeah. So after his release, I said he went through France, he went through Algeria, he went back to France and told and spoke to the different Algerian Arabs, diaspora, why their homeland needs to be free. And the Algerian Arabs, they got the message. They are being humiliated in their homeland in Algeria, and they are being treated as third-class citizens. They were the one doing the shitty jobs, washing the toilet, doing us work as mortuary attendant, bar, prostitution. They were doing all sorts of things. And they said they cannot continue this way. So they were doing all sorts of things. And more women started joining the struggle. In fact, the women in the Algerian Revolutionary War were more deadly than the men. In the Algeria, and I'm going to tell you, even though I'm not advocating, they were more deadly than the men in the Algerian War of Independence. Now I'm going to go straight into the third part. This was where it's getting interesting. And this was during the Second World War. You know, the First World War weakened France. The Second World War weakened France. And when the Second World War started again, the French government, having seen that these people can be used as straw, I don't know how I'm going to put it, cannon foders. They can be killed and be thrown into the front line without any form of conscience. I mean the Algerian Arabs. They recruited over 200,000 Algerian Arabs to go and fight again in the Second World War. So these people went into the Second World War. They fought in Vietnam, they fought in Burma, they fought in France. In fact, they were the last line of defense in fighting Hitler's Nazi army in France. Many Algerians were killed. Despite everything they did, they were treated as third-class citizens. So they said this was enough. They are not going to continue with this. Later on, the Messalihaj was finally thrown in prison because he was telling original Arabs not to join the French army, that they are not French, that they will only be used and dumped. You know, just the way we tell fellow Yorubas, when you go and die fighting Boko Haram, you are fighting for the caliphate, Sokoto Caliphate. When you die for Nigeria, you are dying for the British glory. When you die for Nigeria, you die for colonial interest. So Mensali Arch became a threat. And they said at this junction, they need to lock up this man for as long as possible. So they lock him up. So during this period, the young Algerians, Arabs, who went to World War II, came back. Those ones now became more radicalized. They saw that the French were even more, they were more afraid in battle compared to them, that they were more valiant in battle compared to the French army, the French soldiers. So why are they now being treated in an inferior matter, in inferior way? Also, they also saw that the French people, French soldiers can also bleed like the Arab soldiers. So what gave them this sense of superiority that they think they have? The most difficult part of the battle, they are the ones that do the dirty job. So why are they still very, very powerless? You know, the same thing also happened in America. Most of the veterans that came back from World War II, who fought in the Second World War, they were the people who started spreading the ideology that led to the civil rights movement, that actually galvanized the civil rights movement, that all men are born equal. We fight and die for this country, like you white folks. Why are you not saying we don't have equal rights like you? It's either we get our right or we die fighting for our rights. That's actually what changed the whole thing. Because when these people came back, they understood the military way of doing things. That the question of the day is not by speaking grammar. You have to take what you want. That the world is a jungle and nobody will give you what you want. The oppressor will never and never deem it fit to give the oppressed. It's really, that morality trying to appeal to your oppressor does not work for indigenous people. It's only work within the European settings, not for indigenous people. So I'm going to still correlating with my brother that asked about Brexit. And I'm going to, if he's still here, and I'm still going to answer his questions. So, in 1945, after the end of I think which date was that? I think there on May 8th, 1945, after the surrender of Germany and the end of this Second World War, the Algerians, as gullible as they are, Algerian Arabs, they were the ones who took up drums and tambourine in the city of Saif in Algeria, and they were now drumming. We have won the Second World War. These are people that are under subjugation. This is like Yoruba situation, or you see this Igbo Kubana nonsense. People that are happy in the face of subjugation. So this has always been where people are colonized for a long time. They lose their sense of reasoning. They lose their sense of logic. They lose their sense of self-preservation. They lose their sense of understanding how the world works. So when these people came out, and there was an apartheid rule, you cannot pass through the European quarters. They don't want to see Arab Algerians along that area, around that area. These people were so happy they passed through that area. And the settlers were telling them, hey, you guys, you these subhumans, get out of here. What are you doing here? Get out of here. So they were like, didn't we fight in the battle? Didn't we fight for the Algerian War of Independence? We would be happy to do this. Why do you want to send us away? We all fought for this battle, and there was a riot. And during the riot, 100 French settlers, because they gave themselves a different name. In French, it was called Pied Noir, but in English, they call them the colons. So I'm going to be using the English term. So they 100 colons, French settlers, who are the super class, just like the Boers in South Africa. 100 of them were killed. Immediately, the French government heard this. The French government, the section in France and in Algeria, they sent in the army, and 40,000 Algerian Arabs were massacred within 1 month to teach them a lesson. That they said the life of one Frenchman is equivalent to the life of 10,000 Arabs. That was what they said. So they killed as many Arabs, women, torture. They were raping their women. And there's one thing about Arabs. They do not allow, they will die if you ever mess up with their women. They respect their women. So they did all sorts of atrocities, raping. doing all sort of things. That was what the French army did. 1947. That's why some people are not comfortable with history. When we talk about what the French people will do now, this French apologists will say, "Hey, please don't mention names. I don't want you to mention names." You can see we have a problem. Now, how do you want to talk about history? You don't want to say things as it is. Anyway, political correctness is not part of why this club was set out. We say it as it is, and so that we can put things in historical context. And if you have a superior logic as regards to the historical events, we can come here and start uh, uh, engaging ourselves logically. So this was what happened in Sahib in 1945. So 40,000 more than over 40,000 Arab civilians were killed in a month, and many villages wiped out in order to revenge just for the 100 lives of the French settlers that died in Sahif. And this was what made the people that were sitting on the fence, the moderate Arab Algerians, to join the pro-independence movement. Is it making a sense? Many people before the killings at Igangan, they were still sitting on the fence saying, "Let us continue." When the killings hit them, they joined. They said, "No, something is wrong with Nigeria. Something is wrong." The same thing in Biafra, same thing in Ambazonia. But they will sit on the fence until the persecution gets intense, because they know they lost when they start losing families, when they start losing friends, when they start losing people, when the shit start eating the fan, and they know that their moderacy will not save them from being exterminated by the French settlers. They threw away their political correctness, they threw away their neutrality, and the moderates joined the pro-integration, pro-independence movement. They joined the pro-independence movement. And this was what made the struggle to enter a different dimension. Immediately this happened, the French government, they saw what was happening, and the protest was taking place, violent protest. The French government. Now, do you know the funniest thing? The leader of the French government then, his name was de Gaulle. He was the leader of the French resistance that fought against Hitler after the fall of France. The same man that fought against, that was saying he was trying to fight French, German supremacy, ethnic supremacist agenda in France, in Europe, and he was saying he was for the free world, blah blah blah. The same man came back into Algeria and said the Algerians are subhumans, that they deserve what they get. In fact, he never even saw he said that nothing, that they would rather die in Algeria than give back the lands of the Algerians to the Algerians. And do you know why it became that hard? Because there were already 2 million French people who were called colons. They called themselves French, who controlled 70 to 60% of the land in Algeria, who were telling the French government that Algeria will eternally be part of France. That it's better they drive the Algerians into the desert. So they were the ones who said they are not going anywhere. Just like you see the way Fulanis used to operate. Anywhere they carve out a local government, if you carve out a local government in Anambra today, Anambra becomes North. If you carve out a local government for Fulanis in Oyo State today, politically it becomes North. They are not. They don't need the majority to perpetrate evil. Their minority hegemony is what they use. That is why they are everywhere along all the north. They are there in the northwest, in the north central, they created emirates. In the northeast, they created emirates. That is why they can be talking as one north. When they say one north, one Fulani north, where every Fulanis are part of. Every Fulanis are part of. So that's why they want to push for total one. From one north, it becomes one Nigeria. By when they collect Ruga from the entire southern states. They are not interested in giving, if you give them 2 billion acres of land in Niger State, they are not interested. Take all the human beings from Nasarawa and put Fulanis, they are not interested. They are interested in that 200, 300 acres of land in Bayelsa. They are interested in that 10 acres of land in Rivers. This is when you know that these are the people that you should never be in the same country with in the first place. You should never and never be. And it's going to lead to an unavoidable carnage in the nearest future. We are going towards that. Because you can only negotiate with people who believe that what is yours. You cannot negotiate with people that what is for them is for them, and what is yours is for all of you. You cannot negotiate with such people. You will pay with your life with it. They will continue to ask for more until you are totally consumed. This is what they've done ever since the days of Uthman and Fodio. From they took Sokoto, they took Gobi, they took Zaria, they took Kaduna, they came all the way to Ilorin, and they were stopped at Oshogbo. Maybe all of us here will be Almajiris. They were stopped at Oshogbo. When they could not pass through Oshogbo, they tried to pass through Auchi, they were stopped. When they could not pass through that place, they tried to pass through the Benue Valley, to pass through Benue. The thief Jukon stopped them. You understand? Now, in Mesali Ali was released and he became more radicalized. Now, something now happened because I have to quickly brush up. We spent 2 hours. Something also happened. Within the pro-independence group, there was an ideological split. Some people believed in the democratic way of getting independence, while some people believed in the military way of getting independence. You know, Mesali Arch, he has gone to prison more than close to 2 times. So when he has been tortured, so he came back, he became radicalized. He would rather die fighting for this independence than go through the democratic means, because there was no way they are going to get freedom through democracy, because the constitution that was written was written to favor the settlers. It was a form of an apartheid constitution, and there was absolutely no means for referendum in the constitution. There was no means for the Algerian indigenous people to get back their resources, get back their identity, get back their sovereignty within the Algerian, within the French constitution that was made for the Algerian section. So Algeria was like a state within the French Empire. And during this time, the Vietnamese were also fighting. They also tried to expel the French. So the French were like they want to continue to preserve their French Empire throughout the world. So they saw the Algerian War of Independence, Algerian case, a do or die affair, and they saw the Vietnam War a do or die affair. So when they lost the Vietnam War, all those who fought at the Vietnam War, all the soldiers I think 20,000 soldiers that fought at the Biafra at the Vietnam War, people that many of them they were massacred by the Vietnamese. They were brought into France, battle-hardened soldiers, to crush the Algerian movement for independence. In fact, when this rhetorics of independence was now getting higher, they started offering all sorts of political, and they started saying the Algerians should also form political parties. They should come and contest at the ballot. They should, all sorts of things. And so there was a split between the Algerians who believed in independence through democracy, and the Algerians who believe in independence through anything necessary. The leader of those who wanted freedom through democratic means, his name was Ferhat Abbas. So it was like, no, he was copying the Mahatma Gandhi revolution, that we can be free. So sooner or later he got to know that the French government, they they tightened the screw, and they started picking up all the revolutionaries, the people that the nationalists, they started getting missing. They started killing a lot of people that were agitating for freedom. They locked many people in prison on tropom charges. Many people went missing. And after 2 years, by 1949, he saw that there was no hope for a democratic way of getting independence. So later on, he went on the ground. So there were different groups. Now there was a problem, ideological problem within the um, self-determination groups in Nigeria. So there were groups like, we have the FLN, we have the MNA, we have the AM. There are several groups. We have the communist parties, and some of them were like, we are Islamic groups. Some of them were like, we are communists, we are socialists. They started fighting within each other. In fact, the first bloody war took place within the self-determination groups. The first bloody war in Algeria. And the French people were happy, like, they will continue to kill themselves. They planted moles within the self-determination groups, who were just bringing up sentiments within the different parties. And before you know it, they went into war. So thousands of revolutionary fighters died. And it was the AMN that was able to become the most vocal. It was the FLN that became the focal point of this self-determination struggle. So they were the people that survived. So they were the people that took the battle to the French. So in 1954, the Algerian nationalists, led by one of the leaders, is Rabah Bitat. When you listen to these names, that's why I don't say Arabs are bad. No, you have to go and look at revolutionaries. Rabah Bitat, and this particular man too, a black revolutionary from the West Indies. His name was Franz Bannon. If you are Franz Bannon, Banon. He was from the Caribbean, Martinique, which was a French colony. He also came. He was a medical doctor who came in to provide the ideological basis, the medical treatment for the Algerian Arab revolutionary fighters. So you have to actually read about Bannon too, and you are going to be shocked that everything Bannon said, everything this guy said, these people said almost 100 years ago, still makes sense. So nothing has changed, and nothing will change except something changes through the help of Olodumare if we do the right thing, so that our children will not pass through this mess. Because by then, maybe it would have been too late. Because even the children of these feudal oligarchs, they are even more terrible than their fathers. See the way they talk? Than their fathers. So they only come to tell you about unity because they know that they don't have what it takes to survive as a people. And they see the agenda that Nigeria is an empire of their forefathers. And the British gave it to them. This is why we have to understand that the ideology of a people, it doesn't matter if it is black or white, how do they think? What is the ideology of these people? If I don't care if you are black, white, red, Asian, yellow, if your ideology is an expansionist ideology where you believe in appropriating people's land, you are a threat to indigenous people. So this was a mistake people didn't know. If you read the history of the Fulanis for one day, You will never come here to talk about one Nigeria again. You will never. You will never. These are people who go into indigenous spaces, take over the land, kill their kings, kill their leaders, and install their own leader. They leave, go to another place. I can tell you kingdoms, more than 10 kingdoms and empires that have been taken over by these people. That is why they had to lobby the British to tell the educated southern fools. When history was removed from our curriculum, Ezekwesili was the Minister of Education. That's when I see these people bring back our girls. They are all wicked aristocrats who put us in this mess. Who put us in this mess? So you must never, never listen to these people. You must never. You must never listen to these people. They can talk, no, but they should never form your opinions. They should never form your opinions. That's why when we have the gathering of hardcore Yoruba nationalists. Have you ever seen people calling Obasanjo there? When they say Yoruba nationalists are gathering, do you see them calling Obasanjo there? Doesn't belong there. You might have changed people, might say people, I don't care, but it does not belong there. Because over time, he has proven to be the enemy of the indigenous people because of power. Because some things are common sense. And all the policies that we've been having since 1970 is getting worse. That's why our lives is becoming miserable under this failed colonial project. And nothing will change. Nothing will change. You cannot continue to be comfortable in your misery and you continue to propagate the colonial project. You continue to preach prosperity for people under oppression. It absolutely makes no sense. So going back to the battle, so the Algerian national, so immediately the battle started, the French did something disingenuous. They started a French regiment, which they've always used since they invaded 1832. And that regiment was what the people call the Harkis. So when they started this regiment, some historical accounts said at a point in time, there were 500,000 Algerian Arabs fighting on the side of France in order to kill fellow Arabs who are fighting for independence. So the pro-integration groups that I told you, they were Arabs, Algerian Arabs, who are telling fellow Arabs, look, there is nothing wrong in colonization. There is nothing wrong in we being third-class citizens of Algeria. There is nothing wrong in the French taking all our lands, all of our oil. There is nothing wrong in we being slaves, prostitutes for the French. There is nothing wrong. That is unity in diversity. That is loving our neighbor. That is when they slap us on the right cheek, we should turn the other cheek. That is independent. That is love. That is pan-humanism, pan-Africanism. Let us continue to endure. Let us go look for good leaders. Let us continue to pray for our enemy. Don't let us do hate speech. When we hate the French settlers and French colonizers, we are practicing xenophobia. We are by God. Let us continue to love those who killed our people. Let us continue to love those who destroyed our people. This was what these people were saying. And they had money. They gave them millions of francs. And they were able to recruit, people that are poor, people that were not educated, people that have, and they promised to say, look, just go and kill those Arab Algerians that are fighting for independence. Once you win this battle, all of you will become French citizens. And they did a good job. In fact, between 1954 to 1958, they killed thousands, if not millions, of fellow Algerians. Anybody who assisted the revolutionaries, their family, they were brought out. After killing the head of the family, they now wipe out the entire family. So they were the people that were saying, you see, they were the one pointing out to their fellow Arabs. They are the one pointing out. You have to kill this man. You have to kill this man. This is their informant. This one also attended their meeting. Yesterday we were at the bar, and this man was supporting the pro independence. So he's part of them. So they were the one pointing out, and they were doing a good job. So what they do is this: the French government divided the army into two. The Harkis, who are the original Arabs, I said they were up to 500,000. They were in the front line. They were the ones who go into the villages, into the bushes, into the towns, into the city to act as spies, conspirators, collaborators, to fish out and sell out their fellow Arab revolutionaries. So when they do this, they will now send back reports to the French army. So the French army will now come in. Once these are the people, they will kill the people. They are going to engage them. They will ask the Akis to step back. They are the Meshujambas. So this particular French army, they don't have any share. They don't share anything. So they don't see that. They don't see the Arab Algerians as human beings. They go in there and kill as many revolutionaries as possible. So when this thing was going on, in fact, at a point in time, the Algerian revolutionary soldiers, it remained only 15,000 soldiers. So they had to run into the mountains. So if you know Algeria properly, you are going to understand. They ran into the mountains. This is where they reorganized. That what is happening. So they found out that their greatest adversary that might make them not win the war of independence were the Akis. The Arab Algerians fighting on the side of France. They were fellow Algerians. They know how the Arab people were thinking. They spoke Arabic. They were fellow Muslims. They live in the same area. They know the topography. They are indigenous people. But they've been destroyed. They are the product of the anglicized Arabs that I spoke about in the first part of my speech. What the Arab Algerian revolutionaries did, I hope the Biafrans, the Niger Delta, the Middle Belt, the Akwa Ibom, and the Yoruba people and other self-determination movement across the world. I hope we are not going to get to that level. They just ignored the French and declared war on the Akis. So it was blood for blood. They know themselves. So they now went inside the mosque, inside the area. They were doing all sort of bombings. So the French could not recruit again. Because once you are not, they know that this is who you are. Fighting on the side of France, you are dead man walking. So they could not recruit. So they could not do their dirty job anymore. The issue of preaching love to your enemy did not apply to the French revolutionaries again. Because they know that an internal enemy is more dangerous than the external enemy. So they were able to break that particular line of sabotage as regards to their struggle. So immediately they did this, they were able to regroup. And more people joined them. On our side, who sponsored this battle? It was the diaspora Nigerians. They are 5 francs, 2 francs. It was so hard. Go and check Google. These people were humiliated, but they didn't care. They were just contributing their stipend, sending it home for the struggle to continue for as long as possible. In fact, thousands of Algerians were also killed in France. They would just raid them, put them into concentration camps. That we are the ones sponsoring the problem at home. They didn't care. This time there was no internet, no social media. The means of communication was bad. In fact, air travel was not as efficient like this. Yet, these people did what they had to do to free their people. So that is why sometimes, maybe because we don't understand history, you have to understand that some people have sacrificed for the new generation. At least Algeria is not the best country, but they have a homeland. Algeria for Algeria. So in fact, they call that war the decolonization war. It was a war to destroy the Algerian War of Independence. Algerian expansionist agenda. to destroy the French expansionist agenda. So by the time the French were saying they were winning, it was becoming too terrible. The economy was in shambles. They started using propaganda. The revolutionaries started, they started getting allies, speaking to the Arab world. They were speaking to Britain. They were speaking to all sorts of other people to come and help them. Like, this is our land. And don't forget, it was at the peak of revolutionary movement in Africa, in South America, and in Asia. India was just saying, okay, they're also independent. Vietnam was doing the same thing. The same thing across West Africa, across South Africa, Southern Africa. Everybody was saying, no, the colonizers must go. So the public opinion was against them. So they could not win. They could not win the battle. And I spoke about the Algerian women. These ladies, they have a white complexion. They would dress nice, looking good. They were the people that did more damage through bombings, suicide bombings in Algiers, because that was the base of the settlers. The settlers built Algiers to look like Paris. It was not different. If you go to Algiers, then it was not different from Paris. Because it's almost the same thing, just the way you had the apartheid system of governance in South Africa. So this was when they fought this war, and France knew they were in trouble. In 1962, this is a sad part, and I want everybody to listen. In 1962, the God said at this junction, they were even said they were going to be referendum. The FLN said they don't. What referendum? Referendum in our land, get out. No referendum. So they now said, people started, international community, other countries say, okay, let there be peace. The Turkish people too, they had former interests in Nigeria. They came out and said, okay, let there be peace and let us sign treaties. If they want to leave, all the Arab Algerians that fought on the side of France in their millions, they must be spared. You know what the Arab revolutionaries said? They said, no problem. They will spare them. They said they've heard. They said all the French settlers, the economy, they will say, the Arab revolutionaries said no. They are settlers. Doesn't matter, maybe they spent 150 years or 200 years. They must go back to France. So when somebody tells you all sort of nonsense, that a Fulani man has been living in your area for 20 years or 30 years is equal to an indigene of that place, tell them they are mad without any apology. Because they are repeating what they did in Futajalon, Futatoro, what they did in Hausa land, what they did in Nupe land, what they did in Mali, what they did in Burkina Faso, and how they took in Niger, how they took the land from indigenous people. When you see any settler that is dehumanizing and competing with the indigenous people in a very condescending way for political and economic benefit, there is a problem. It is good for us to travel anywhere, but you must always respect the indigenous people. Don't condescend and say the indigenous people you want to appropriate lands. As any Yoruba man gone to Canada and say you want to take land from the Canadians, you want to be from the indigenous people. Doesn't matter even if you have Canada passport. Do you go there and start looking for how you are going to appropriate ancestral spaces? And you have somebody that comes to social media and say, look, it doesn't matter if you don't give your land. If you don't give your land, they will kill you as much as possible. Like we had in Nigeria. So they had these deals, and the French people started evacuating. The French Algerians, the settlers, they saw the handwriting of the war because they've done all sorts of atrocities. They were the they were the, I don't know how I'm going to put it. They were the ones that was used to perpetrate evil for 150 years in Nigeria. So so they said just leave. So when they saw that if they stayed back, they looted everything. It was just shit. They were using to evacuate them. They broke down the houses. Even they were carrying PVC latrines, toilet seats. It was as bad as that. Thinking if they go, the Algerians will not be able to survive. So they did all these things. Fortunately for Algeria, they've not discovered petroleum for the Algerian Arabs. Petroleum had not been discovered in commercial quantities, at least like we have now. If not, they would have embraced neo-colonialism to stay back in Algeria. So they saw it was a brutal war. Very, very brutal war. Many of the leaders, like Mensali, Arch, Rabah Bitat, many of them were already dead anyways. But they said no matter what happens, the struggle must continue. And how many of them were arrested? It was the Arab Algerians who fought on the side of France, who sold them out. It was the fellow Arab Algerians who sold on the side of France, who sold them out. So in 1962, 1963, all the French settlers in Algeria, after close to over 100 years, they finally evacuated and left Algeria. Do you know the funniest thing? The Arab Algerians that fought on the side of France now wrote a petition to the French government. Why are you leaving us? What about us? What about if we want to follow you to France? The president of France said, we don't know you. Are people listening to me? Am I still communicating? They said, we don't
Yes, oh.
know you. And they forgot about them. They forgot about them. They said they have a deal. They are Algerians. They should stay back in Algeria. So over 100 years of treachery, they were still seen as traitors by the French, who they assisted in destroying their people. I'm talking about millions of lives. So, even though I'm not in support of what the FLN did, the French revolutionaries did, the Arab revolutionaries, immediately the last gunship of France left the shores of Algiers, they descended in their millions on the Harkis, and killed as many as possible. In fact, there was a statistics that said for every 100,000 inhabitants, close to 7,000 people were killed. Them and their family, everybody who collaborated with the French for over 100 years were exterminated. So some of them tried to escape, and some French, they've already made friends with the French army and the French government. Even though the God was like, he doesn't want to bring these subhumans into France. The same subhumans they used to destroy their people. This is what I've been telling you. If you follow Fulani people or anybody Britain to destroy Yoruba people, you will also be destroyed. You are only seen as a fool. Because you are a traitor, will always be a traitor. Afonja was used by the Fulanis to destroy the Oyo Empire. Immediately he was used, they did not make any mistake in getting rid of him. Shola Gberu did the same thing at Ilorin. He said he was a Muslim, he can never fight against Fulani Muslims because of the oneness of Islam. Immediately they got rid of Afonja. The Fulani did not make any mistake in getting rid of Shola Gberu. He was gotten rid of because they said he has pro-Yoruba lineage, pro-Yoruba allegiance, even though he was a Muslim. They got rid of him. He was massacred. They laid siege on his territory at a location on Ilorin. They killed him. So if you are here, you think you can play double allegiance because of religious dispositions, because of what you are benefiting economically, they will kill you. This is not hate speech. This is what history has taught us. The same thing happens with the Malams and clerics of the Hausas who joined with Madam Fodio to kill Yofa, to kill they destroy the 7 Hausa kingdoms, both in current day Niger and Nigeria. They were all decimated. When it was too late for them to rally round, they saw they've been used and dumped. They will use you and kill you. We are not saying we shouldn't do APC and PDP. When the APC and PDP you are doing is at the detriment of the survival of your people, something is wrong. Something is wrong. And despite all the facts, the historical evidences that we've spoken here several times, you still don't get the bigger picture that you will be used and dumped. History does not repeat itself. People repeat history. That is why we are going to do everything necessary to stay this fact there, like those crying in the wilderness. If you destroy your people, you will be destroyed. Akintola did the same thing. He was destroyed. MKO Abiola sold out the Yoruba people in the Second Republic. When it was the Third Republic, he said he thought he could ride the back of a tiger. MKO Abiola was against Awolowo all his life. All his life. Then what happened to him? He was killed in prison. The richest man in Africa was killed in prison. And his wife killed in the street of Lagos, shot in the head. And those who killed him, they are still out there in the corridors of power. These people don't believe in karma because they've been destroying kingdoms for the past 500 years and they've been getting away with it. I'm telling you about what France has done. So if you think karma and God will judge them, you better stand up for your people so that you don't become statistics. So this was what happened to the Harkis. And many of them, over 300,000 Algerian Arabs, they fled. And the aristocrats, the businessmen, they fled to France. When they got to France, the French government went to a particular rural place and went to go and put them in something like a concentration camp. They were not allowed to have access to the basic amenities of life. For 50 years, up till the 1990s, they were humiliated. And these people, they cannot go back to Algeria. They couldn't. Because they've sold out their people. They couldn't go back. They were wanted dead or alive. If they ever step back in Nigeria. Because the revolutionaries could not believe, how can you collaborate with people that are killing your people? And when it was time for us to fight, you now went to go and enlist a mass. You are the ones pointing out their beautiful girls to be raped. You are the ones pointing out their business interests to be destroyed. You are the one pointing out people, their leaders, to be executed. After you now did this, you lost the war. You are now asking for a reconciliation. Forgive and forget. They understand that if these people are still within their society, they will still collude with external interests to get back into the corridors of power and still continue the colonial identity because they know these people were already destroyed. And all the French government did not even see them as any sane people. They were seen as subhumans. It was not until this present president, Hollande too, was in fact part of the campaign promises of Hollande, was that he was going to reintegrate them and tender an official apologies to the Harkis, the Algerian Arabs who fought on the side of France, in France. This is after close to 50 years. to 60 years before they even appreciated the treachery of these people against their people. It was Macron that finally said and said, "Oh, we are sorry, we are happy to have you." You know, that's how traitors are treated. This is the sad story of the Harkis. So many of the Arabs descendants in France. That's why you see these people, they don't play for France. They don't play for Algeria, they play for France. I won't mention any footballer because they are the descendants of those who ran away and who could not go back to Algeria. Because they assisted, they collaborated in the destruction of their people. This is a summary of the Algerian War of Independence, the Harkis and the roles of the Harkis, and the lesson for the Yoruba self-determination struggle and to all self-determination struggles for indigenous people across the world, around the world. I yield the mic.
All right, before we take other questions, thank you so much for your submissions. Can you please answer my brother Abdul's questions?
Okay. Mr. Abdul asked the first question about Brexit. How the British were able to do Brexit in a very peaceful way. That how can we do it in a very peaceful way? I'm going to say this. Brexit was done because the British wanted to practice self-preservation. They said the Polish people, the Hungarian people, the Romanian people were coming to take social benefits, and they saw that there were more British who were of other European descent growing up within England, and they did a kind of a statistical analysis, that the way things are going, the English will become a minority in the next 50 years because a European does not need a visa to go into Britain and have the same benefits as British. That's one. So they said they had to do something so that one day an Hungarian will not be telling their children that we won't own England. And when they have the right population, they will just do a democracy and say they want to remove the English crown and they will become an English British Republic and remove any form of monarchy because they understand what they've done to other people. The British understand what they've done to other people. The British were responsible for the exterminations of millions of Aborigines in New Zealand and Australia. In fact, Mr. Abdul, the British were responsible for the extermination of the Tasmanian people, the Tasmanians in Australia. What they did was they poisoned the water and millions of Tasmanians were wiped out. They say thousands, but they wiped out the entire people in a particular island that is as big as Lagos, bigger than Lagos. So that was what they did in Tasmania. Brexit, why it was done peacefully? It was done peacefully because Britain has, they have the economic power. You know, London is it's one of the most powerful economic capital empires of the world. Two, Britain is a superpower. You don't tell Britain what it's going to do. It's nuclear armed. So it's not a shithole that you're going to tell what to do. When you are a superpower, the way you negotiate is different. You take what you want, you don't ask for what you want. If the Fulani people want to secede from Nigeria tomorrow morning, they will secede. And nobody from southern Nigeria will hold them back. I repeat, no single person, no single shot will be fired. Because they've been able to appropriate power to themselves. They are not interested in PhD, grammar, professorship. No, they are not interested in going to Harvard. You are wasting your time. Power and organized violence and purposeful, I don't know how I'm going to put it, purposeful violence, purposeful nepotism in order to consolidate power for the next 200 years. So that's what they do. When they come to Clubhouse, they are not coming to Clubhouse to say that what they've done is right. No, what they've done is wrong. They don't come to Clubhouse to say that. They come to Clubhouse to say do three things. Or they come to the social media, they go on TV, they go everywhere to do three things. One, they tell you unity in diversity. Two, they tell you that God created Nigeria. Inshallah. So everybody must be in Nigeria. Three, they tell you if you try to secede, we are going to kill you. Am I lying? That's what they do. So they are not telling you that there will be fiscal federalism. They are not going to tell you there's devolution of power. They are not going to tell you that Nigeria is. They even tell you Nigeria is not negotiable, indefeasible. I don't know where they got those nonsense statements. As if we share any placenta together. So this is what they tell you. They are not telling you to. They are not coming to tell you why Buhari should stop nepotism. No. They are not telling you why a Fulani man should not be heading NNPC or a Fulani man should not be heading NPA. No, what's their business? They tell you, look, there is beauty in sharing. Let us continue to share. Let's continue to share your resources. They are not telling you that Sharia police is not good. Sharia law cannot be practiced in a secular country. That's none of their business. In fact, they are telling you that Nigeria is an Islamic country. That's what they tell you. So, this is the difference. So, Britain falls into this category because they have power. Then also, look, in European way of doing things, Europeans respect themselves. They've learned the lesson in the First World War and the Second World War that no European country, society should lord against another European nation. They must not do that. They must not do that. What Spain is doing to the Catalonians, if the Catalonians were have another country, like let's say the Catalonians were the ones that were in Britain or Germany, they would never dare touch the Catalonians. I'm going to give you an example. The 70% of the population of Switzerland is Germany, Germans. Another 10 to 20% of the population of I'm not sure about the statistics of Belgium are also Germans. Another almost 40 to 30% of Luxembourg are also Germans. In fact, another, I think 3 to 4% of Italy, a region in Italy called South Tyrol, are Germans. Austria are Germans. So the Germans of Italy, at least I'm going to use the South Tyrol revolutionary movement, for instance. The Germans of Italy fought, they were ready to go to war, that they want their regional autonomy where they are going to speak their language, preserve their culture, control their resources, control their economy without the control of the central Italian government. Some Italians wanted to, they were going to crush them. You know what Germany did? Germany just wrote to Italy, look, the people that you want to touch, they are Germans. Treat them with respect and dignity. We will not want to go back to 1945 scenario. We can negotiate. Let them be within Italy. Since all of us are within the European Union, do not touch them. That was how Italy learnt its lesson. Other European countries want. This is Germany we are talking about, so we don't want problem. Let them be. And that's why Saitaro is one of the, I think, the most economically viable, one of the most prosperous regions in Italy. Check it online. They are Germans. Because they are big brothers. Big brother in Germany intervened and said, don't touch my people, our people. Because they know the concept of Germans is beyond the colonial boundaries of Germany. Because that boundary was what Germany had to settle for after they lost the Second World War. So when you even talk about Britain, Britain is not as civilized and sensible as you think. In fact, they are one of the most useless people you can ever have. Very selfish people. They don't, no apologies. The Irish people had to go to a bloody war of independence. If I talk about the Irish war, maybe we are going to fix another day. I'm going to talk about the Irish war of independence. Lesson for the Yoruba nation. You are going to see what the Irish did before they got their independence from Britain. Because the Republic of Ireland that we are used to be part of Ireland. So they had to forcefully get out of the Union. So immediately they got out of the Union, immediately Britain did something. They devolved power. Scotland, control yourself. Wales, control yourself. And the English control themselves. Because they understand that Scotland will also take up arms in the nearest future. Wales will take up arms in the nearest future. And they know the Northern Ireland, they cannot keep it for long. That there's also a particular war going on there, that the Irish nationalists in those places want to reunite Northern Ireland and Ireland. So if you talk about the Irish case, it's different. If you talk about the British, it's different. You understand? So you have to understand that Brexit was done from the position of power.